The highest form of intelligence isn't IQ or EQ. It isn't logical, mathematical, or linguistic intelligence. According to neuroscience, the highest form of intelligence is metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking, observing your own mental processes, noticing your reactions, questioning your assumptions, basically interrupting your autopilot. And if you're watching this video, chances are you've already been practicing some version of this for years. Journaling, meditation, or simply asking yourself, why did I react that way? Or reading about cognitive biases so you can spot them in your own thinking. And if you're nodding right now, feeling kind of good about yourself because this stuff comes naturally to you, I need to tell you something, because I had that exact same reaction recently. I came across a short video explaining this concept, and I noticed my brain immediately going, yeah, that's me. I'm one of these self-aware ones. I reflect, I question, I've been doing this for years. But then I stopped. Hold on for a second. That warm glow of self-congratulation, that was my brain taking a concept about thinking about your thinking and using it to avoid thinking about my thinking. It grabbed the label, pinned it to my identity, gave me a little dopamine hit, and moved on. No actual reflection happened. None. And that's the thing nobody tells you. Metacognition asks your mind to evaluate itself. Your mind. The thing full of biases, emotional patterns, defense mechanisms, years of accumulated stories about who you are. That's what you're trusting to give you an honest report on itself? That's like stepping onto a scale that might be off by, 20 pounds, reading the number and concluding you're just fine. That's the version of metacognition most people practice, turning inward, feeling like you had an insight and then going right back to whatever you were doing before. And the smarter you are, the worse this gets, okay? Because intelligent people don't just fail at metacognition, they fail in a way that feels like success. You can generate explanations that are so reasonable, so psychologically literate, so well articulated that you genuinely believe you've had a breakthrough. Meanwhile, your behavior hasn't moved an inch, okay? You've just upgraded the story you tell yourself about why. I'll give you an example. For months, I was convinced I'd gotten a handle on my phone usage. I journaled about it. I had real insights. I understood exactly when and why I was reaching for it. I could tell you the emotional triggers, the time of the day patterns, just everything. I felt like I really got it. Then one day I actually looked at my screen time data, pulled up the weekly reports I'd been ignoring. I went from 3 hours and 47 minutes a day to 3 hours and 41 minutes. I had spent weeks generating beautiful insights about my scrolling habits while scrolling. The feeling of progress had completely substituted for actual progress. That's the trap. And it's a trap that specifically catches the people who think they're too smart to be caught. And I'm not saying this to make anyone feel stupid, okay? I'm saying it because I think a lot of people watching this are in exactly the situation and aren't really aware of it. You're doing all the right things. You reflect, you read, you think carefully about your life. But somewhere along the way, the reflection became the end product rather than a means to an end. You started building an identity around being someone who thinks deeply, and that identity is now protecting you from having to actually change. And right now, your brain is probably doing one of two things. Either it's going, okay, yeah, that's true, I do that, which, by the way, might be the same pattern running again, grabbing the insight, feeling good about recognizing it, and just moving on. Or it's going, nah, not me. I actually do change things. Okay, cool. Then can you name one specific behavior that's measurably different than, say, 6 months ago? Not an insight you had, not something you understand better, an actual behavior. If you're struggling with that, keep watching, because if your mind can't reliably evaluate itself, what do you actually do? Well, you do what humans have always done when a faculty falls short. You build a tool. I mean, for thousands of years, we had zero clue what was going on inside our bodies. Doctors were even prescribing mercury, okay, to pregnant women. But then we built instruments, thermometers, stethoscopes, x-rays, blood panels, you name it. We externalized the diagnostic process. We stopped asking the body to evaluate itself. Instead, we started measuring it from the outside. And your mind needs the same thing. Not more introspection, more instrumentation. So let me tell you what actually moved the needle on my phone usage. It wasn't just another journal entry. It wasn't a deeper understanding of my triggers. It was opening my screen time report every Sunday and writing down one number. That's it. One number once a week. Because the moment I had a number staring back at me, my brain couldn't bullshit me anymore. The narrative had to contend with data. And data doesn't care about your identity. And that's the whole principle. Real metacognition can't live in your head alone. It needs something outside of you. Something that reflects your patterns back with less bias than your own perception even can. That one number on Sunday was my external instrument. And once I had it, everything changed. And not because I suddenly had more willpower, but because I couldn't pretend anymore. The story I told myself about my phone usage had to survive contact with an actual number. And it didn't, okay? The same principle applies just everywhere. A journal. Not for the catharsis of writing, but for going back 3 months later and noticing you wrote the same breakthrough insight 4 times. That's not journaling. That's a diagnostic tool. Or, say, a weekly review where you compare what you plan to do versus what you actually did. That gap between intention and behavior is information your brain would never volunteer on its own. Or how about a brutally honest friend? Those are the real ones. Or a mentor, a coach. Someone who will tell you what you can't see because they're outside the system that is impaired by your blind spots. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that something external is reflecting reality back to you. Something your mind can't edit, reframe, or just rationalize away. And here's why this matters more now than it ever has. We're living in the information age, and social media is like refined sugar. For most of human history, sweet meant survival. Then we learned to extract it, to concentrate it, mass produce it. And the same craving that kept us alive started making us sick. Stuff that feels productive, feels like growth, but it's cognitively empty. Just brain candy. And just like with sugar, knowing this doesn't protect you. You can understand the dopamine cycle perfectly and still pick up your phone 90 times a day. Understanding is not protection. A system is protection. In fact, the world you're operating in right now is specifically designed by, some of the smartest engineers and psychologists on the planet to exploit exactly the weaknesses that pure introspection just can't fix. Please understand this. Metacognition is not enough. What you need is armed and effective metacognition. So how do you know whether you're on the right path or just practicing the flattering version of it? Ask yourself this one question. Is your life actually changing? Can you measure it? Not do you understand why you do the things you do, or not that you can articulate your patterns eloquently, but are the behaviors different this month than, say, 6 months ago? Is there external evidence, not just a feeling or a story, actual data that shows something has really shifted? Because genuine metacognition isn't just a state of mind. It's a closed feedback loop. It has an input, honest observation. It has a process which is evaluating against something real, your actual goals, the life you say you want. And it has an output, a changed course of action. If any of those 3 are missing, again, what you have is this useless feeling of metacognition that is in fact just rumination with extra steps. So I'm pretty sure there's one area in your life where you've had plenty of understanding but not much movement, where you can explain the problem beautifully. Maybe you've journaled about it, talked about it, read about it, but the actual behavior, pretty much the same as a year ago. Think about that area right now and ask, what would I see if I measured it from the outside? If I had a dashboard, a tracker, a brutally honest friend, what would the data actually show? That gap between your narrative and what the numbers show, that's your real metacognition score. And closing that gap isn't just a thinking exercise, it's a building exercise, okay? You have to build a system that makes the invisible visible. And then let the system tell you what your mind won't, because the point was never to understand yourself perfectly. The point was always to move, to act, to build, to close the gap between who you are and who you could be. So don't trust your mind blindly. Equip it, instrument it, give it tools that make it harder to lie to itself. That's not weakness. That's the highest form of intelligence and metacognition there is. And the one true litmus test is your real-world results. Everything else is just contemplation for the sake of it and maybe fear-driven overthinking. So if you want to break out of the self-improvement trap that just stays in your head and actually build the systems that turn insight into action, my brother made a video exactly on that. The planning strategies and daily systems he uses to run 2 companies, create content, and still have a life. If you want to see what armed metacognition looks like in practice, go watch that next. And drop a comment. What's the one area where you've had all the insight but none of the change? Be honest, because that honesty is the whole point and the first step towards actual improvement. See you in the next one.